What's going on, people? It's Mental Mondays, and this is a doozy, Inducing Commitment. One of the things that I had to grapple with and wrestle to the mat was dealing with the art of commitment, because you're not going to have long-term success without a strong commitment factor in your life. We live in a society where people don't even want to commit for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. They just want to have that option to wiggle out of something in case it's not to their liking. That not to their liking issue is paramount to the reason that so many people are not living the life that they want to live. When you learn how to induce commitment, how to maintain commitment, your life will grow in so many ways. One of the things with commitment is you have to figure out what is your commitment trigger. We live in a society with social sanctions and rules and regulations, but everyone isn't turned on by the same things. For me, my trigger is freedom. For many years, I thought I was motivated by money. I was really motivated by the things that money could provide. Money is just a tool. Money is not power. Money is just an instrument that people can use to facilitate change or create the life that they want. It is just a tool. So when I woke up and I realized my thing was freedom, and that's one of the reasons I live the way that I live now, because I have a lot of freedom to do what I want when I want. And that's very intoxicating. There are elderly people right now, as I am telling you this, that are in a Publix or a Walmart, they're a greeter or a cashier, because they don't have enough freedom in their lives where they can just be home doing whatever they want. They have to work. Now, there are some that work because they're bored, but that's usually not the case across the board. So the deal is, you got to figure out what is your trigger. What really, 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 really makes you pay attention and really react. And I know one trigger that a lot of people have, and it's not a good one, it's revenge. I was listening to an interview, and it was Dan Ariely. He wrote Irrationally Predictable. And they were talking about that you take a person that isn't really that motivated, then you piss that person off. They in turn will become extremely motivated to get revenge against you. Yet they don't have that same type of response or motivation to improve their lives. But you push the right trigger. So in you, there's a trigger that once it's pushed, will activate extra power. It's like the turbo boost or the nitrous oxide in the car. It's like you push that trigger and it's like it's on. And a lot of these triggers are hidden. Sometimes you'll go a lifetime and never press that trigger. So to figure out what your triggers are, you have to start putting yourself in various situations. Doing things that you normally wouldn't do, talking to people you would normally talk to. The more you expose yourself, the greater you're going to encounter that trigger. I mean, over the last 3 years, I've had to reassign my triggers, because one of them was being really aggressive, storage auction business. Someone says something to me, or I take it as an insult. Everything powers up and I just go after them. That is really a bad way to be online, because the metrics are totally against you. When you're dealing with a person one-on-one, they can't, in a few mouse clicks, bring on an army against you. You never know who you're messing with online and what level of tribe that they have. And I see it all the time. So I was like, okay, you got to ask yourself, what is your purpose here? What are you doing here? Are you here to engage in these flame fights with people that don't matter? And it's like, no, so stop it. So I had to reassign my triggers, because, that was the real big one. But do some work. Some of you may know what your triggers are. and learn to activate the triggers intentionally versus letting other people activate them. Give you an example. Recently, the videos in the hustler mindset got hacked again. First time it happened, I was pissed. I was on the phone. I had a headache all day. This time I was like, okay, we know this drill. We know what's going to happen. And instantly went into crisis management mode, assessed the damage. And based on the last few times I was hacked, the damage really was nothing. It was more of a nuisance. But I have to be thankful for the first few times it happened, because it gave me insights on things that I need to do to mitigate the damage in case it happened again. And I will just tell you, if you have an online business, chances are happening are really good. There's just a lot of people out there that are really smart, and either they're bored or they have other diabolical reasons to hack your site. But the first time it happened, before I reassigned that trigger, it was a lot of stress, a lot of adrenaline, just really, really, and I was like, okay. And I was calm. I wasn't mad. And I really liked that, because it's part of managing you, because you have to manage you to be successful. But everyone's commitment response is so different. You got to figure out what yours is, and it may not be part of conventional society, which could be a real interesting mind trip. Now, we've all heard of the carrot and the stick, I will tell you, there are some people that the stick provides far more motivation than the carrot. It's just, if they get all stick, they're going to work. There's people, you show them the carrots, they're going to work. You got to flesh out what motivates you. It's a essential exercise in your success, because once you figure out what really motivates you, you stop wasting time. And this is why when you go back into the hustler mindset and you go back to the video about narratives, and this is where you really start to pull this stuff apart, because when you're living your life based on the narrative that was fed to you versus a narrative that you created and contrived for yourself, once you strip that away, a lot of things become really clear. Just, going back, like my big thing is freedom. It's freedom, it's freedom, it's freedom. It's not money. I don't give two shits if I'm a billionaire. The deal is, to become a billionaire, you have to serve millions of people. And honestly, one of my friends that I got on the reality show was just telling me what was going on, and he is sick of it. And I know me. Living in hotels and traveling. I mean, just a quick background. When I was in the military, in the span of 2 years, I got to go to Japan, Australia, China, parts of China, not deep into China, Korea, South America, and independent trip to Europe. It was fun for me at that point of my life. But now, I don't want to sleep outside my bed. If I'm going somewhere, it needs to have vacation in it. If I'm going, and people are bringing me drinks and there's a beautiful ocean, or I'm in a different country and there's an excursion, that works for me. But business travel, I absolutely hate it. Totally hate it. So with that, you have to go back to what really, really motivates you. Is it your family? Because we live in an age right now where if you're like seriously family oriented, you want to be there for the first step, the first grade, be home when they get off the bus. There are numerous internet business models that you can do that can provide a very lucrative income that will provide you the freedom to be at home. Now, you might be working at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but you do get to be there. That's very doable, more now than it ever has been before. But with the motivation thing, your motivations may be things that other people don't consider savory. That's the reality. And this is about the Hustler Mindset Project. You're going to do what's good for you. You're going to do what's good for your family. Those values, that narrative may be totally different than what everyone else thinks is normal and fair. But that comes back to, when you go back to the Hustler Mindset, to the part about developing courage. It's sometimes being you, or being the person that you really are, is the most courageous thing that you could do in life, because there's so many narratives and labels and people that want you to be something so they can feel more comfortable about who they are. And it really has nothing to do with you at the end of the day. Now, this is really about figuring out what your true values are. Now, this is totally different from triggers, and this is totally different from what motivates you. A value is a core belief. I don't believe in killing people. Only way that I really would try to kill someone if they were trying to kill me. I don't believe in, there's a lot of things I don't believe in, but they're strong, consistent values that have not changed pretty much since I was a teenager. And I know that when your life, because the thing is, if you're motivated by some, but it doesn't fall in line with your core value, it's going to be a crash. It's going to be a mental crash, a spiritual crash, because there's nothing but conflict. It's like, I want this and I'm motivated by this, but my values are saying, no, we are not going to do this. And the values are going to be in the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is just going like, sorry, that, there's conflicting values, so we're actually going to make nothing happen. So you have to make sure all of this stuff lines up. Your true values, your motivation, and your triggers. And the thing is, this is the beauty of doing self-internal work, because many people are seeking solutions externally for internal problems. When you start to pull apart your mind and your value system and look at your life and start defining stuff and writing your own narratives, this thing starts to smooth out, and you start to not be so anxious and have these issues because you are taking control of your life. You are saying, I am the director of my life. And initially, when you take that level of responsibility, it's a scary thing because you're responsible for everything. So when something happens, you're like, okay, how could I have done that differently? And this is where I fall into a huge conflict with a lot of Christians, because if you're Christian, I'm not trying to be offensive, but the whole doctrine is just put it in the Lord's hands. And I don't feel that way. I feel that when you're born, everything that you need, you have. And it's about a journey of development and truth and working on yourself. And as you move forward, you gain energy and power, and you can do so much. I mean, I think the human potential is so untapped because of all of the minutia of narratives, labels, social sanctions, people using tenets of the 48 laws of power against the common man. And I'll say it now, if you haven't read the book, and it's a big book and it's in small type, but get it and read the whole thing. It's like 500 pages, but it's worth the read and acknowledging what's going on, because once you read it and you're watching the news, you're like, oh, that's what they're doing. And oh, this is what Korea's doing. You see this stuff because these laws are time tested over centuries, not weeks, not months or a few years, but centuries. And that's why people in power continue to use them. And that's one of the reasons that our education system has issues, because if people were truly educated in transcendental meditation, the 48 laws of power, financial educations, the average man would be so powerful that it would be really hard for the okie doke to be pulled over their head. But since so many people don't educate themselves, and they don't read newspapers, and they don't know about the 48 laws of power, and they don't know about this stuff, it is very easy to open up the gate, hang a few little trinkets on the gate, and the sheep just go into the pen. And actually, the sheep would revolt if you try to kick them out the pen, because inside that pen are some titties, and there's a lot of milk in those titties. Sometimes the milk has carcinogens that give you cancer, but the milk tastes so sweet, and those sheep don't want to let the titty go, because they're not like you. They're not doing the self-work, because when you do the self-work, you realize that, hey, there's more to this. There's definitely more that I need to do. And dealing with your values, because this becomes a really challenging exercise, because some of the values that you have were given to you by your parents, and they may be conflicting with your subconscious value set, because you're just like, yeah, mom, dad, you just like, it just doesn't feel right. and you can't put a finger on it, and there's no one you can talk to, and sometimes you think you're kind of crazy, but you know that value that you have and you're upholding it, but it's not really working for you, and you just don't know why. That is because it's really in conflict with something that's more spiritual than you. It's in direct conflict, and that's why you're having problems. That's why you have people who are successful. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of power. But because everything is out of whack spiritually and internally, they do drugs. They become alcoholics. That is their way of coping with all of this stuff that's going on, because they have all this stuff that's going on the outside that looks great from an outside perspective. But internally, they are a complete and utter mess. And you look at celebrities. You look at celebrities that have learned how to deal with it. Like you take Eddie Murphy. When he gives an interview, the dude is so relaxed because he's finally accepted that I'm Eddie Murphy, a star. And all that comes with this is craziness, and he's accepted it. Then you take someone like Kurt Cobain. He never had a chance to accept it because it was so many bad things that were going on that he killed himself. This is common. And this is one of the reasons that when you have a flock of friends and then one starts to kind of like elevate, depending on how he or she does it, the flock may revolt, because when they see that trajectory going up, they're also seeing the mirrors on the hind fence. It's like, I'm down here. And they're seeing their face get smaller and smaller in the mirror because you're moving higher and higher. That's not really a joyful visual experience if you want a better life, but you just don't know how. And there's something else that happens when you have old values. It becomes intrinsically impossible to change. Everyone has that uncle, that aunt, that grandparent that's just a certain way. They've been a certain way. They're never going to change. And it's sad because the human condition is malleable. If you're 60 years old and you want to facilitate change, you can do it. But we live in a society that just says that people are people. Once a cheater, always a cheater. An old dog can't learn new tricks. All these are limiting beliefs that many people go out into the yard, pick up, hug, take inside the house, and put it in a sacred place in their house and look at it every day. You don't have to hold on to that stuff. You really don't. But this comes about sitting down and really pondering your life and seeing the life you have and seeing the life mentally that you want. Because with the value thing, if you have orthodox religious distilled values, life can be very challenging. And it's not because you're an orthodox religious person. It's because the world operates on a totally different set of principles, saying if you're fair to people, they'll be fair to you. It depends upon the agendas that are in play. As you work on your mental abilities, as you work on your strength, and this is one of the reasons I love Dragon Ball Z, because if you notice, when they work and develop, they get internally more powerful. Their power level just goes through the roof. And that's one of the models that I use for myself, because I am eminently far more powerful mentally now here in 2013 than I was in 2009. I don't get as stressed. And, this is with goals, alignments, and working on myself internally, because, I've had a lot of money. I've been really broke. But the thing is, when you have internal peace, when you have a wonderful mental environment, what's going on the outside doesn't really knock your world apart on the inside. You could be on the street with 2 pennies in your pocket and be ecstatically happy, because you do have a form of wealth. You have a form of emotional wealth. You have a form of spiritual wealth, and you have a form of mental wealth that can someday matriculate into a lot of money. But there are people who have what I call the J.G. Wentworth thing. It's mine, whatever, and I want it now. And that impatience kills their dreams, because certain things come as you increase your abilities. Now, this is a technique that I have used that is responsible for everything that I have. And it's the 30-day, the 60-day, and the 90-day commitment. Whenever I'm going to do something, business wise or a book, I call it the 30-day, 60-day, 90-day hell or high water commitment. There's times I start off and that first week is horrible. I don't want to do it, but I look at my goal sheet and I was like, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. And sometimes I fall behind the timeline. But I have noticed the 30-day, the 60-day, the 90-day commitments, things get done. And sometimes I will commit myself, and a case in point, to social media. I actually spent 6 months on that. And the hell of high water, because I say hell of high water because sometimes you have a predisposed thought that it's going to come out a certain way. And then you're like, yeah, it's kind of looking that way. And around 2 weeks, you're like, you just stop. Whereas if you had continued on for another 2 weeks, another trend would have emerged. And that's what I've learned. And this is something I do in my dating life when I'm dating seriously. I'll talk to the woman and say, look, I really like you. And this is what I want to do. For the next 30 days, I don't want you to date anyone else, and I'm not going to date anyone else. We're going to go out, we're going to do stuff, we're going to have fun, and then at the end of 30 days, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to say, hey, was that cool enough that we want to do it another 30 days? This has taken so much stress out of my dating life. It's because the thing is, it's just like, you just know what's going to be the 30-day conversation. It's like, yeah, we're just friends. And it's really cool. And it's like, because the expectation was set. And the women don't feel cheated because they got your all for 30 days. And I'm going to say something. If you can't give one woman 30 days, you've got a lot of problems that are going to be evident in other areas of your life because there's only 30 days. And there's some women that's like, oh God, 30 days and no one else. I don't know. I kind of want to keep my options open. Bet we'll be friends. And I move on. Because if they can't do 30 days, they can't do a lifetime. It's that simple. So by having these time frames, and this is why when you write your goals and you write your plan of execution, it is imperative to have a commitment time frame. That's to keep you on point, and that's to help you weather those ups and downs and craziness and nutty stuff that happens when you're chasing a dream. It's like I've learned it doesn't happen anymore. But early on, before I really started learning how to control my thought process, I would start a new path or a new business, and it was like I went outside and found the biggest hornet's nest and hit it with a rock or a stick and just stood there and waited for the hornets to come get me. And I was just like, what is this? And as I've educated myself and I've learned about spirituality, the middle thing, it's you're removing a lot of negative energy out of your body when you do positive things. And this old saying, it applies to people, it applies to energy, it applies to habits. Luxuries once tasted become necessities. That negative energy likes being with you. It loves hanging out with you. It's like, what you trying to do? Get rid of me. I like being up in you. I don't want to go. So you create this energy disruption that is just bananas. And the thing is, when you talk to people who don't even think in these terms, they're just like, well, that's just life. No, it's not life. It's a transitional shift. You are shifting your energy. And by staying on the path, you're going to shift it out and bring in new energy. That's better for you. That will help you do the things you want to do. Because this is the thing about like inducing states. And I kind of just figured this out on my own because I noticed that when I listen to, and this happens to you also, when I listen to a certain level of music, like Baroque music helps me learn things. When I listen to old rhythm and blues, it puts me in a very romantic, sentimental mood. And I just like, God, it's just certain songs, certain things that induce a certain state. You can do that with just about anything. So when you're inducing these states and you're changing this energy, you're pushing something out because there was something there before you changed your state. And whatever was there may not want to leave because it's been there so long. And then you've developed this codependency. It's like you're used to it. Like you see people who are just always sour. They're not happy. They have developed that habit. And it's real difficult, not impossible, but it's difficult for them to change because it's a habit. And that's why when you do the 30-day, the 60-day, the 90-day, you develop new habits of being able to commit. one day I just woke up because I had a very, very bad habit of saying, I am going to do this. And I wouldn't follow up. It was horrible. And there's one day I was like, you got to stop saying it, because I was creating this negative self-fulfilling loop. I would say I want to start something, then I wouldn't start it. Then every time I would do something, I would get the same results. Then one day I just really pushed through it. There was this project I was working on. I didn't want to finish it up. And I was like, look, you are going to stop saying that, and you're going to start doing more. You're going to be more about action than talking. So I buckled down. I mean, seriously, it was just like almost like that commercial where you see the person that's just dragging himself to work. It was just like I had to literally just drag myself across the finish line, and I got it done, and I stuck with it. And I felt so much better about myself, because confidence and self-esteem comes from doing things, not saying you're going to do them or having good intentions. It actually comes from completing certain tasks. And the more arduous, the crazier it is, the more satisfying it is when you do nail it. So anything you do, you have to have that 30-day commitment, that 60-day commitment, that 90-day commitment. Once you achieve your goals or get close, or you find out it's not working, you sit down, you reassess, and you put in a new timeline, and you keep this thing moving. And you'll develop a habit of starting and finishing things, which is extremely important in being successful. Many people can't do that. They start, they let it go by just sticking with it. And this isn't to say that there's going to be times where you're going to try to do something that doesn't work out. What I'm saying is, when you try to do something that doesn't work out, you figure out why that way didn't work out, but you keep working on it. A great example is the storage auction business. I have people of various experience levels recently in the last 8 months that I've talked to that are kicking the asses of people that have been out there for 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, okay. And the thing is, these people have made a commitment. Everyone that's paid me like 150, because that's where a lot of it was, $150 for an hour consult. We talked about stuff. It wasn't me per se, but the fact is that they raised their commitment level to pay $150, so they were more vested in being successful. Where you have people who are just like trying to I don't want to pay anybody, I'm smart enough to figure it out. And I'm going to tell you something. Once you rid yourself of that, I am so smart I can figure everything out. I used to be that way, and it limited my growth. When I started saying, hey, I don't know everything, when I started reading books, when I started looking for other mentors, my life exploded. It literally exploded. My Audible book club now is like $14 a month. I know I buy 3 to 4 books a month, and I'm spending about $60 to $100 a month, every month, on self-education, because you got to keep it rolling. You got to keep rolling, because when you're introduced to these new concepts, it just expands your possibilities. And I have a very low barrier to success from buying a product. If I pull out 1 or 2 ideas out there that make me whatever, pay for the book or way more, I'm happy. Other people, is inversely totally, it's like I spent $15 and I need to get about 20 grand worth of value out this book, or it wasn't worth it, which is bananas. But many people actually think that way, because it's just a book. And really what they're saying is, I don't really want to pay a lot of money for anything, because I'm not really going to do it, since I'm just kind of like winging it, or just out there for a second with no heavy investment. Then when I don't do it, I don't feel so bad because I didn't spend that much money. And going back to the earlier example, when people make a higher level of financial commitment, it ups their overall emotional commitment. And a lot of people are not ready for that. So my friends, make sure you have 30-day timelines, 60-day timelines, and 90-day timelines with your goals. And commit 30 days, hell or high water, I'm doing this, unless I get sick or something. That's the only thing. Family coming in town, nope, that's not an excuse. The dog's mad, nope, not an excuse. Mickey Mouse wants to hang out and have, nope, there are no excuses. And this is another thing with family. Family is super important, but if you're on the path, you have to start announcing things to your family like, hey, I am doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to be available. Set the expectation. Just don't disappear. And that way, when they want you, but they can't get you, they kind of like, all right, well, they're on something. They may even support you, because I was in the middle of a project, and I had some family members just pop up in town, and You know how it goes. They pop up in town, and everyone, people, they want you to entertain them. And I was just like, look, I didn't know you were coming, and I'm knee deep in this project, and I'm actually 2 days behind, so I can't even have lunch with you. And then, it kind of got out around the family. Glendon, he wasn't really a good host and everything. And I let these fools stay up in my house and fed these fools. And they're talking bad because I didn't want to take time from doing something constructive to just hang out. Well, long story short, 2 of those people that were hanging out got laid off. And now they're like, hey, could you help us? And I was like, sure, but but we're family. I was like, you're not going to respect me because when you came to visit me and you saw what I was doing, you didn't respect it then. And then I'm going to turn around and take my time to help you. No, you will pay just like everyone else. There was no family discount. And they were appalled and they were pissed off and everything. But one said, okay, paid me. And she's doing quite well right now. This was about 4 years ago. Yeah, this was about 4 years ago. And, I instilled a lot of stuff in her and, she's created a business and she's supporting herself. And it's because I didn't just give it to her. And that's one of the things, like, with my kids, I'm like, look, I'm going to help you, but you got to give me a commitment. You got to put some effort in because what you're doing is developing important and worthy habits. And understand, it is never too late for you to develop this. If you don't have this stuff today, cool. It's no problem. You can develop it. That's what you can do. You can develop it. All right. This is Glendon with your Mental Monday.